Here's your lunch, Sarge. They didn't have no jelly donuts, so I give you French crawlers, okay, Sarge?
French crawlers? I got ulcers. Why don't you make it apple pie? Police Department, Precinct 43, Duffy speaking.
We don't have no apple pie either, Sarge.
Police Department? This is Mrs. Stevenson, Mrs. Elbert Smythe Stevenson of 53 North Sutton Place. I'm calling up to report a murder.
Huh?
I mean, the murder hasn't been committed yet. I just overheard plans for it over the telephone, over a wrong number that the operator gave me. I've been trying to trace down the call myself, but everybody is so stupid, and I guess in the end, you're the only people who could do anything.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It was a perfectly definite murder. I heard their plans distinctly. Two men were talking, and they were going to murder some woman at 11:15 tonight. She lived in a house near a bridge.
Yes, ma'am.
And there was a private patrolman on the street. He was going to go around for a beer on 2nd Avenue. And there was a third man, a client, who was paying to have this poor woman murdered. They were going to take her rings and bracelets and use a knife. Oh, well, it's unnerved me dreadfully, and I'm not well.
Yeah, I see. When was all this, ma'am?
About 8 minutes ago. Oh, then you can do something. You do understand.
And what is your name, ma'am?
Mrs. Stevenson, Mrs. Elbert Stevenson.
And your address?
53 North Sutton Place. That's near a bridge, the Queenborough Bridge, you know. And we have a private patrolman on our street and 2nd Avenue.
And what was the number you were calling?
Murray Hill 40098. But that wasn't the number I overheard. I mean, Murray Hill 40098 is my husband's office. He's working late tonight, and I was trying to reach him to ask him to come home. I'm an invalid, you know, and it's the maid's night off, and I hate to be alone, even though he says I'm perfectly safe as long as I have the telephone right beside my bed.
We'll look into it, Mrs. Stevenson, and see if we can check it with the telephone company.
But the telephone company said they couldn't check the call if the parties had stopped talking. I've already taken care of that.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Personally, I feel you ought to do something far more immediate and drastic than just check the call. What good does checking the call do if they've stopped talking? By the time you track it down, they'll already have committed the murder.
Well, we'll take care of it, lady. Don't worry.
I'd say the whole thing calls for a search, a complete and thorough search of the whole city. I am very near a bridge. I'm not far from 2nd Avenue, and I know I'd feel a whole lot better if you sent around a radio car to this neighborhood at once.
And what makes you think the murder's going to be committed in your neighborhood, ma'am?
Oh, I don't know. The coincidence is so horrible. 2nd Avenue, the patrolman, the bridge.
2nd Avenue is a street, ma'am. And do you happen to know how many bridges there are in the city of New York alone? Not to mention Brooklyn, Staten Island, Queens, and the Bronx. And how do you know there isn't some little house out on Staten Island on some little 2nd Avenue you never heard about it? How do you know that they were even talking about New York at all?
But I heard the call on the New York dialing system.
Well, how do you know it wasn't a long-distance call you overheard? Telephones are funny things. Look, lady, why don't you look at it this way? Supposing you hadn't broken in on that telephone call. Supposing you'd got your husband the way you always do. Would this murder have made any difference to you then?
I suppose not, but it's so inhuman, so cold-blooded.
A lot of murders committed in this city every day, ma'am. We could do something to stop them. We would. But a clue of this kind that's so vague isn't much more use to us than no clue at all.
But surely...
Unless, of course, you have some reason for thinking that this call is phony and that someone may be planning to murder you.
Me? Oh, no. I hardly think so. I mean, why should anybody? I'm alone all day and night. I see nobody except my maid Eloise. She's a big 200-pounder. She's too lazy to bring up my breakfast tray. And the only other person is my husband, Albert. He's crazy about me, adores me, waits on me hand and foot. Scarcely left my side since I took sick 12 years ago.
Well, then there's nothing for you to worry about, is there?
Well, Sarge, I found you some apple pie.
And now, if you just leave the rest of this to us...
But what will you do? It's so late. It's nearly 11 o'clock.
Thanks, kid. We'll take care of it, lady.
Will you broadcast it all over the city and send out squads and warn your radio cars to watch out, especially in suspicious neighborhoods like mine?
Well, I said we'd take care of it. And now, just now, I've got a couple of other matters here on my desk that require my immediate attention, so...